Have you ever been so deep in a pattern, so caught in the spin that it just feels like you? Like, this is just who I am. Like, I am confused. I am overthinking, or I am someone who can't make decisions. Like, I am someone who needs to figure everything out before I can make a choice. Most people will give you tips on how to stop being confused or how to stop overthinking or how to get clarity. But what I want to ask here is a different question. What if the confusion or the overthinking one isn't indecision? It's actually a part. What if it's not actually you? And what if that's a part of you and that distinction is really important? So, what I'm going to show you today is a practice called parts mapping. It's one of the most powerful things that I do with my clients, and it's something that I come back to myself often. So, today I'm going to walk you through this exact process so that you'll be able to do it yourself. I'm Andrea Tessier. I'm a high capacity coach for ambitious women who give a shit. And I use IFS or internal family systems to help women like us build the self trust and capacity to hold the next big thing. And today we're going into one of my favorite entry points into this work, externalizing your parts through mapping. So let's get into it. So I need to give a little bit of context here because it's important for us to understand what happens when a part takes over or when we are blended with a part. And not that long ago, even though I've been doing this work for years with myself, with my clients, I was deeply blended with a part that I call a figure it out part. I was asking huge life questions. Should I move? Should I change my business? What do I actually want? And it felt so urgent. Like every decision I made would have this trickle effect, and I just had to know. It felt like that's just who I was. Like I couldn't move forward until I made these choices. Like me, Andrea, needed urgently to solve this problem right now or something bad was going to happen. And that's what parts do when they're activated. They don't feel like a part, they feel like it's you, like you're hijacked. And when you think it's you, when you think, oh, I'm somebody who can't stop overthinking or reacting, you have no leverage. We can't get curious about it. We can't work with it. You're just in it. And that's where this practice of externalizing comes in. And so, what externalizing does, it's actually quite simple. Instead of saying, I need to figure this out, this thing I am obsessing about, we say simply, a part of me feels like it needs to urgently figure this out. And that language from I need to a part of me feels like is the beginning of how we do this. And you can do this with any parts beyond our figure it outers. A part of me is procrastinating on doing this task. A part of me wants to go to this event, and a part of me doesn't. This lets us take a back seat as the witness to what is going on. That allows us taking the front seat again to what is going on. And that tiny shift in language, what it offers us is space, perspective. When you externalize, you move from being inside the problem, from being inside the part to being a witness of it. You step back into the seat of the self, that essence of you that is calm and curious and clear and has the confidence to make decisions from clarity. That part that can actually see what's going on because it has perspective and patience. So, parts mapping takes one step further. When we put pen to paper, When we actually draw these parts out, we are physically actively separating ourselves from them. We're making them external to us. We're able to see them, we can be with them, we can get curious about them. And what that gives you is breathing room. The urgency is able to release, the spinning of the mind slows. You haven't solved everything, but you're no longer inside of it. You're able to witness it. So, this is where clarity is actually accessible. You get that perspective. So, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that now.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the exact parts map that I share with my clients that I did on the dock that morning when I was so in it. And this is real. Like, this is exactly what came up for me when I worked with my system that day. So, the first thing I did is I drew a simple mind map with myself at the center. Um, we all have a self. So, this is the one that we want in a hot seat. And then I started asking which parts are alive for me right now. The first one was obvious. It's the one that I'm calling the figure it out part or the figure outer. It really doesn't matter what you call these parts. It just needs to make sense for you in this context. In the context. This is the one that was obvious. This is the one that was on overdrive for me. The one trying to find answers, the one asking big questions, the one that felt like it had to make the decisions. And so what I jotted down is, first of all, what is it doing? Well, this is the part that was asking basically life or death questions. What was it thinking? Well, it was also thinking that it had a lot of pressure or feeling that it had a lot of pressure to decide. That was a feeling, but it was also making big life decisions. Big decisions. Did I spell that right? This is where you get to see that I'm also a terrible speller. It was worried. This is how it was feeling. It was worried at its core that I wouldn't be okay. Okay. And seeing that, I immediately was like, oh, I can be more compassionate here. This part of me is concerned. And then I started asking questions. As soon as I noticed there was a figure outer part, I noticed that what it was trying to solve for was like low key dissatisfaction. So, this is another part. And these parts were connected. The figure out part was kind of helping the dissatisfaction part, thinking like, oh, if I just help the dissatisfaction, we'll be okay. So here's dissatisfaction. It was comparing. This is what it was doing. Comparing, looking what other people were doing, what they had, what they'd built. And it started feeling like, I want more, or I want that. It started thinking things like, this isn't what I want. I was noticing something that it was doing was really seeing the negatives. But when I was able to name the dissatisfaction, there was a harder part to see. Underneath both the figure outer and the part that was low key dissatisfied was a part of me that just felt sad. Right? There was this like post big life adventure come down when I did the Camino. It felt like life didn't fit anymore. And it was just sad, right? Or like meh. And what it actually wanted get this, to be seen, to be felt, to know it mattered. All it wanted from me was comfort. That's what it wanted. And here I was trying to figure it out, feeling dissatisfied, when really what this part needed from me was comfort. And there was more parts in here, I'm sure, but these were the key players. And so all three parts now on the same page. And this is where we can now get curious about these parts. We can feel ourselves as separate. And this is where it's like, these parts aren't working against me. They're not ruining my life. I don't actually have to urgently figure out this problem. They're trying to help. They have their own strategies. So I sat with each one of them to figure out this feeling of dissatisfaction, this deep feeling of sadness. And I asked, what do you actually want from me? What are you afraid will happen if you stop? Like, what do you really care about? My figure outer part wanted certainty, right? It wanted to be safe. It was terrified that if I stopped pushing or figuring out, I'd end up somewhere I didn't want to be. My dissatisfaction, it wanted a good life for me. It wanted me to not settle. It wanted me to play bigger. It wanted to protect my happiness. But it was doing it in a way that felt like criticism. But what it wanted was a good life. My sad part, it wanted to be held. That was it. It wanted to be known. It wanted to know it was going to be okay. You see what's happening here? They're not fighting. They're not the enemy. They all wanted something beautiful, a good life, certainty, to be held, to be safe. They just had different ways of going about it. And once I had this on paper, I stopped feeling like I was confused. I stopped feeling like I had to urgently blow up my life. Of course, these parts were activated. Of course, they were loud. They were trying to take care of me. When you map out your parts, it doesn't need to be cute. It doesn't need to be beautiful. You can see we're just getting ideas onto the paper. When you map your parts and you see them in front of you, something shifts. You get to realize, oh, I, I am the one looking at these parts. I am not the figure outer. I am not the one that is dissatisfied. I am not the sadness. A part of me is, absolutely, but I'm the one that can see them all. I am the one who can be curious about them. I am the one that can hold them all with compassion. And doesn't it make sense that they would care so much about these things? Right? That perspective right there is you returning to self energy, that quiet, steady, clear space that's always been inside of you, underneath the noise, underneath all of the spinning, and underneath the urgency of our parts. So I'll say this again, parts mapping doesn't necessarily solve for the problem, but it actually gives you something more valuable than that. It gives you access to self. And from self energy, clarity comes. But your parts get out of the way enough for you to see it with the perspective that's required. Okay, so if you want to go deeper into this full practice, the complete clarity ritual that I did on the dock that morning, including what happened when I sat with each part and wrote back from self, I wrote the whole thing out on Substack not long ago. So I'm going to link it below. The link is in the description. And if you try this out yourself, do let me know. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. And I'll see you in the next one.